Not too long ago, I read a book called Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl, and I also watched a segment on Dr. Joy DeGruy. I think that's how you pronounce her name. I think many black females need to listen to this because I don't think they really know what happened to them, what happened to their female ancestors during slavery. And Dr. Joy went into some very extensive detail. It's very disturbing when you actually listen to it. I'll post a link under this video. In the book, I forgot the woman's name. I can get that up. You can just look up the book real quick. But the ex-slave woman wrote about her life during that era. She talked about the horrors of watching young females at an early age being taken away from their mothers and fathers, and the mothers and fathers, of course, would cry in sadness and in anger, but what power did they have to do anything about it? And they already knew what the fate was going to be of their daughter, and the age ranges were very young to about middle mid 20s. There, it didn't matter. They would start this at age 13. Yeah, I mean, in one incident, she talked about there was a good-looking black woman that basically the slave master used as a reproduction machine. He would whore her out sometimes to other white males would come there, and of course, I mean, she was just used to breed more slaves, which was basically mixed children. In the book, she also talked about how there was a free black man who had money, and he fancied her, so he wanted to marry her. But because the slave master was fond of her and he wanted to sleep with her and he wanted her as his mistress, he wouldn't allow her to be sold. And now, to me, that's very disturbing. And I think about that in the context of today's current events. With us interracial dating and how some black women are saying white men are better than black men, all this nonsense going around. And then I think about what this woman was talking about back then and how relevant it is for today, the brainwashing that many black women have today. Now, the Dr. Joy segment, I think that's a must-watch for every black person. But there's a lot of, I'm talking shocking details that are, it's very disturbing to hear her talk about this stuff on there. One example, she was talking about, statistically speaking, white males make up like 90+% of the pedophiles in this country alone. We're not even talking about worldwide, but in this country alone. And she said, now imagine back in the 1600s when there are no rules or laws or regulations against any mistreatment of slaves, and imagine what those white males did to the children at a young age. How they got molested at a very young age. She said, imagine, there obviously there's some homosexual. There were going to be some homosexual slave masters or males or white males during that era. Now imagine what they did to the young boys, or heck, maybe the older boys as well. You know what happened. Just think about that and let that just settle in your mind for a little bit. She also talked about another disturbing thing, how basically in many cases, or in most cases, the mothers had to prepare their daughters at a young age, like 12 and 13, to basically be raped. I mean, her book and what she talked about, she calls it post-traumatic slave syndrome, and she talks about how war victims, and like how the Jews, they have a classification for their symptoms, and basically how it talks about how the things from the past genetically will affect things in the future, and it's been proven scientifically. It is fact, but some people might know that. You got to research it. But if, like, say your third great grandmother went through a famine, it'll affect your DNA right now. Just imagine that at a young age, preparing your daughter to be raped. You have to tell her basically the slave master is going to come and get you and do this. Don't scream. Don't sound like it's bothering you or anything like that, or it'll be worse. Just kind of take it. Here's a present that you can give to the slave master right before he rapes you. And these are things that actually took place. Another disturbing aspect. Think of how a black male would feel, and then relate this in today's current events. The black male having to watch as a woman who he might have married or a woman that he loves, straight up taken away from him or called to the master's bed or to the master's house at night, and would be gone for maybe like an hour or so. Imagine the thoughts going through his mind. He already knows what's going to happen. She already knows what's going to happen. I mean, just imagine that and relate that to today's current events. I mean, not to mention it was common for white males to have black mistresses all the time. It was just a common thing. The white females couldn't stand it, but many of them had mistresses. Even some of the high profile white people that you read about in history, they had slaves and they had mistresses as well, and black children, or mixed children, I should say. She also talked about how basically black people were bred. I'm sure many people know this. They had the buck houses where they had black females set up in there, and if there was a big black dude, they'd say, hey, I'll breed that black dude with this female, and basically bred like horses. Though a horse is more valuable than a black person. I mean, you really need to watch the thing that Dr. Joy did. But when I watch stuff like that, when I read books like this, and I see this interracial dating craze, and black women dogging black men dogging black women, to me it's just a sign of ignorance of one's own self and of one's culture. I mean, to me, in many aspects, it's almost like spitting in the face of your ancestors, because I mean, these people went through this, died and fought and got raped. Some of them weren't even aware of concepts outside of being a slave. That means their whole life was basically a slave. This is what life is being a slave. To me, after they fought so much so we could be free and to have the ability to shape our own lives, it's almost like you're spitting in their faces. I mean, if you're not producing any more black children, then I mean, we are their legacy in this country. I mean, if you're African American, you are the legacy left from their struggle. And I keep telling you, we're gonna go the way of the Aboriginals and Native Americans. You're gonna be wiped out. You're gonna be exterminated if you continue this stupid. I mean, look at the UK. I mean, in one of my videos, a woman called in talking about how basically when she turns like 70 or 80, there's not going to be any black people there that look like her, or very few. Only people her age will look like her. Everyone else will be mixed and biracial and barely consider themselves black anything. Who will tell your story when you die? These are very, I mean, and what's even more annoying, some of these people who do this still want to be attached to their community or lack thereof. You want to be black, but then have somebody else non-black, but then someone does something racist to you, you want to be black for a little bit, then go back to being whatever you want to call yourself. It's just ridiculous, man. The black community cannot survive if this crap keeps persisting in a high rate. We're the only group of people that does this at these high numbers. I mean, you probably can kiss the UK goodbye unless they start, more people come there off the boats. You can kiss the UK goodbye. Black people, I mean, we're going down that route, and knowing this history, it's a shame that this is even an issue. It shouldn't even be an issue. Your people went through all this, and then your main option is, well, I'm gonna go get me a white guy or a Hispanic guy, or anyone that is non-black. To me, if they're non-black, then it's what are you doing? That's how I look at it. Black or black male or black female. If they're non-black, what are you doing? Until the world is actually equal and people see each other on equal terms, then this should be paramount. It shouldn't even be a discussion. This should just be automatic. But I just wanted to throw that out there. I think many black females need to actually watch that and see what your black female ancestors went through in this country for hundreds of years.